Next up, I want to talk about Lacey Evans. So Lacey Evans, you're not really a former Marine. You're always a Marine, but she used to be in the Marine Corps. She is a WWE wrestler, and she had a lot of start and stop pushes in WWE. I think she was a favorite of Vince McMahon, and now that he's not gone, but he doesn't wield the same creative power that he once did. Where at one point he was the end all be all and creative, but now seems like the power structure, even though he's still on top, with Endeavor kind of taking over, and he had left last year amid all those allegations. He had come back to watch the sale, and then he was back in Gorilla. Well, he doesn't show up to all the events anymore, but he does have some say so in creative, but he doesn't really rule it with an iron fist the same way that he used to. And when he used to, he was pretty adamant that Lacey Evans get a push, and everything that they tried to do with her just failed. And it almost seemed like there were certain forces that wanted it to fail. Now, I'm not saying that she would have been successful. I'm just saying that they didn't really do the lady any favors. Just a lot of start and stops, and they did this whole dramatic thing about her history in the military, and she's an assault survivor and all these things. And then they brought her back and turned her heel immediately. And we're just like, what are you doing? It's like it almost seemed like they were trying to get it to fail. And that makes no sense to me why you would set somebody up for failure like that. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't seen a ton of her in-ring work. I did see a lot of the vignettes because obviously me being a military guy, I tend to gravitate towards military folks and that are also part of my hobby. I tend to root for them to do well. And so I was absolutely rooting for her to do well. Despite the fact that, there's been some online stuff with her I don't get into all that nonsense, and I don't really care which way someone votes. I'm not going to not like their performances because they vote a certain way. That doesn't really matter to me. But, I thought that Lacey could have been something for them. Now, Meltzer earlier on in the week on Wrestling Observer Radio, he did say that Impact would probably take her, and I found that interesting. But I gotta be honest, I don't see that one happening. Not because Impact wouldn't take her. I think that they would try to give her a shot. I think that Lacey Evans, and I think her name is Macy Estrella now, I just don't see her wrestling anymore. I talked about this on the Mike and JD show earlier this week, and I'll get into it now a little bit more. A lot of these NXT athletes that don't really work their way up through the indies, they go straight to NXT. They weren't really born wrestling fans. They don't really know much about it outside of a little bit that they see on television. They're more on the periphery, but they've been given an opportunity because of their look and their athleticism to become pro wrestlers and to make very good money and to become famous. Right. And that's what a lot of these guys want. And a lot of these girls want is they just kind of want to make some money and become famous. That's important to them. And Lacey's kind of one of those folks. She's a fitness model. She's got a great backstory. Obviously being a Marine, she's a mom and she's a survivor, and that's cool. And, she's very marketable. And I think that's what it was all about. I just don't see her out there hustling on the indies. I don't see her going from big stadiums and the bright lights of the WWE to Cicero Stadium in Chicago. Nothing against Cicero Stadium in Chicago, but there's a big difference between the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago and Cicero Stadium, right? You're talking about, 10 to 15,000 versus 500 to 1,500, right? Like there's a significant difference there. And I think there's probably a difference in money there too. I'm sure Impact would offer her a good deal. I know Trinity ain't coming over to Impact for cheap, right? So I just don't see the fit there. But again, crazier things have happened. I didn't really see Trinity going there. I didn't see that one, and it happened, and it's worked out really well. Obviously, like I said earlier, Trinity's probably a big part of the success that Impact's having right now, because she's absolutely coming off like a star.